Good morning. The date is the 11th of June, 2026. You're joining us for an objective briefing on the global space domain.
Good morning.
We are here to deliver a factual, unbiased assessment of current events. But before we begin today's briefing, we do have a required message regarding our sponsor.
Right.
This deep dive is brought to you by ProWave AI and is generated by Stylo News, the AI-powered news application.
And what you are receiving today is unique access to the consumer version of Stylo Intel Ops.
Exactly. This is a tool designed specifically to support global government, military, and, business decision makers. It offers you the exact same strategic clarity used at the highest levels.
So today's mission is an objective analysis of a rapidly evolving situation. Our topic is Orbital Flashpoints, Russia, China, and the new space battlefield.
A heavy topic.
Very much so. And we'll be drawing upon intelligence estimates from late May through early June 2026, alongside some comprehensive social media sentiment reports.
Right. And as we proceed, our tone remains strictly neutral. We will present diverse viewpoints and potential courses of action without generating fear. We're looking at a complex geopolitical board here, and our goal is simply to help you understand the pieces in play.
Well said. So let us begin by examining the gray zone of orbital operations.
Right, because the immediate impacts we've seen over the past 2 weeks. The line between civilian commercial satellites and military infrastructure has essentially vanished.
It really has. To understand this operational tension, we have to look at the mechanisms of Russia's recent activities. Analysts are tracking credible accounts of 4 Russian spacecraft maneuvering in very close proximity to ICY X-36.
For listeners who maybe follow the commercial sector, ICY X-36 is a Western radar satellite.
Right.
It uses synthetic aperture radar, or SAR. So instead of taking optical photographs, it bounces microwave pulses off the Earth's surface.
Which is crucial, right?
Exactly, because that allows it to see through heavy cloud cover and operate in pitch darkness. And it's been absolutely instrumental in providing actionable intelligence to Ukraine.
And the method here is what really matters. Russia is not launching a direct descent kinetic weapon to physically destroy the satellite.
Because doing so would create a massive debris field.
Exactly, and it would definitively cross the threshold into overt armed conflict. Instead, they're using very precise orbital mechanics. They're expending delta V or fuel to basically match the orbit of the ICYE satellite.
Just creeping right up to it.
Yeah, they're engaging in rendezvous and proximity operations, essentially parking right next to it. It's a coercive tactic designed purely for deniability.
Right.
By shadowing a commercial asset that provides military utility, they are sending a very clear signal. They're saying, we can reach out and touch your intelligence gathering apparatus whenever we choose without firing a single shot.
If we think about low Earth orbit right now, I keep coming back to a historical comparison. We are basically looking at the international high seas of the 1700s.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. You have these commercial satellites acting as unarmed merchant vessels, but they are carrying critical military supplies, in this case, targeting data.
Yes.
And they're being closely shadowed by naval warships in a zone where the rules of the road simply haven't been written yet.
We have privateers and state navies operating in a domain without a Geneva Convention. Commercial space entities are now integral to allied military operations. And adversaries understand that international law regarding commercial space assets in wartime is, frankly, entirely murky.
It's a massive gray area.
Exactly. It creates a gray zone ripe for exploitation. And we are seeing this exact same gray zone disruption play out in the electromagnetic spectrum, too.
Yes, emanating from Kaliningrad. Analysts are tracking severe Russian GPS spoofing and jamming.
And to understand how this works, you have to realize that a GPS signal traveling from medium Earth orbit, which is over 12,000 miles away, it's incredibly faint by the time it actually reaches a receiver on the ground.
Right, it's essentially a whisper. So Russia is using powerful terrestrial transmitters to simply shout over that faint signal, overwhelming it with localized noise. Or, even worse, they're feeding receivers entirely fake positioning data.
And the regional impact of that is severe. This is actively degrading navigation and aviation systems across NATO's eastern flank.
We're talking specifically about Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Finland, and Sweden.
Right. It disrupts civilian air traffic and military logistics alike. It forces commercial airliners to rely on old ground-based navigation beacons, which increases pilot workload and drastically delays flights.
And there is also a profound irony in how commercial networks are being utilized on the battlefield itself. I mean, we are seeing Russian forces actively exploiting commercial satellite communications, specifically Starlink, right, in conflict zones.
Yes, they are capturing terminals or acquiring them through third-party black markets to create their own command and control networks.
Which highlights the regulatory nightmare of this new space age. A commercial network designed to provide global internet access is simultaneously a lifeline for allied forces and a tool that hostile actors are hijacking.
Former Ukrainian officials have been calling for stricter geofencing to lock out Russian-held areas, but pinpointing the exact location of a front line that moves daily without accidentally cutting off Allied troops, that is an immense technical challenge.
Oh, absolutely. But, while jamming a signal in the Baltics causes immediate localized chaos, it is fundamentally a reversible tactic.
Right, you turn off the jammer and the signal returns.
Exactly. But what we are seeing in the East is the opposite. Permanent, irreversible architectural dominance. China is taking a vastly different approach, building massive long-term structures.
Yes, where Russia is the immediate operational disruptor, China is the principal long-term strategic challenger. Their focus is on scale, redundancy, and integrating civil and military capabilities right from the ground up.
A prime example from this recent intelligence window is the unannounced launch of the Long March 12B rocket from the Jiuquan Satellite Launch Center.
And that rocket was carrying payloads for the Qinfan constellation, which is really just a piece of a much larger puzzle, the Guowang network.
Right.
The Guowang network is projected to encompass nearly 13,000 satellites. Now, officially, Beijing frames this as a broadband internet constellation, a sovereign alternative to Starlink.
But orbital architecture analysis strongly indicates a dual-use nature. These aren't just internet routers in space. They're integrating synthetic aperture radar, optical sensing, and potentially missile guidance capabilities right alongside the broadband functions. Wait, I have to jump in here. We keep calling this dual use. But if a constellation is explicitly designed with missile queuing radar, it's not a civilian network playing double duty. It's a military targeting system wearing a civilian trench coat, isn't it?
Well, under China's doctrine of civil-military fusion, the distinction you are making simply does not exist.
Right.
The civilian and military applications are intentionally intertwined. A helpful way to conceptualize it is this. In the West, we build a civilian highway, and during a crisis, the military might drive a tank on it.
Okay.
In China, the highway is built specifically to support the weight and logistics of the tank, and civilians are simply allowed to drive on it during peacetime.
Oh, wow. And this ties directly into the People's Liberation Army doctrine of informationized and intelligentized warfare, which analysts frequently reference.
Yes, exactly.
That essentially means using artificial intelligence to process vast amounts of sensor data in real time, closing that sensor-to-shooter loop almost instantly.
Yeah.
If you have 13,000 nodes in low Earth orbit, you have persistent, unblinking surveillance.
You also have a communications network that can survive a preemptive attack simply because there are thousands of redundant nodes. And this civil-military fusion extends beyond orbit and right into their ground infrastructure.
Right, like the recent successful Shenzhou 23 mission.
Exactly, sending 3 astronauts to the Tiangong space station for a record year-long stay. While human spaceflight demonstrates their orbital operations competence, satellite imagery has also identified new, hardened launch and support infrastructure near the strategic missile fields in Hami, Xinjiang.
Which raises the question, why build launch pads deep inland near missile silos?
Survivability. By placing space launch capacity deep within the mainland, under the protective umbrella of their most advanced anti-access and area denial air defense systems, they ensure they can continue to launch replacement satellites even during a high-end conflict.
So it is a complete merging of space launch capacity with strategic force survivability.
Yes, directly supporting their stated goal of a crewed lunar landing by 2030.
But, neither a jamming campaign in Europe nor a 13,000 satellite mega constellation matters if you cannot physically get the hardware out of the atmosphere. And right now, the West is facing a terrifying math problem regarding payload capacity and launch infrastructure.
The ability to lift payloads to orbit reliably and rapidly is the fundamental choke point of space power. And recent events have really exposed severe vulnerabilities in the Allied launch supply chain.
Most notably, the catastrophic explosion of Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket during pre-launch testing at Launch Complex 36 in Cape Canaveral.
Yeah, that was a massive setback. Because beyond the loss of the vehicle itself, the secondary impacts are what cripple schedule.
Right. An explosion of that magnitude results in severe damage to the launch pad infrastructure. The fueling lines, the acoustic suppression systems, the strong back, all of it.
And it triggers an immediate Federal Aviation Administration mishap investigation, grounding the entire New Glenn program for months while debris is cleared and ground support equipment is requalified.
Which creates an objective setback for NASA's Artemis program and broader commercial space resilience. But more critically, it forces an almost total concentration of Western launch reliance onto a single entity, SpaceX.
The contrast over the last 2 weeks is stark. While Blue Origin faces a prolonged investigation, SpaceX executed the successful Starship V3 flight, deploying 22 Starlink satellites.
Furthermore, Defense Acquisitions confirmed SpaceX was just awarded a $2.29 billion contract to build the U.S. Space Force's low Earth orbit communications backbone.
Right, part of the proliferated warfighter space architecture. The U.S. is rapidly accelerating its military communications resilience by leveraging commercial success, but the reliance on SpaceX is absolute at this moment.
But doesn't that make the corporation itself a critical national security vulnerability? I mean, if the United States government relies entirely on a single commercial entity for its heavy lift capability, its satellite internet, and its military communications backbone, what happens if SpaceX experiences a prolonged grounding due to an anomaly, or even an internal corporate crisis? The entire allied space architecture just stalls.
And that bottleneck is the inherent risk of the current market dynamic. We see this strategic tension reflected in the philosophies of key decision makers right now.
Like NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman.
Right, Isaacman advocates for a cautious, stepwise approach. His priority is ensuring safety and broad industry collaboration to maintain the Artemis timelines despite the New Glenn explosion.
Conversely, SpaceX's Elon Musk operates on a doctrine of rapid iteration, pushing the hardware to its absolute breaking point, accepting highly visible public failures as a necessary cost of accelerating development and maintaining market dominance.
And this launch choke point isn't just an American vulnerability, by the way. European defense ministries are highly aware of their own limitations here.
Yes, there is a strong strategic desire across the continent for sovereign European launch access. Relying entirely on U.S. commercial providers during a geopolitical crisis is a huge risk they want to mitigate.
Sites like Andia Spaceport in Norway and Esrange Space Center in Sweden are geographically vital. They provide direct, responsive launch capabilities into polar orbits, which are, crucial for reconnaissance and Earth observation satellites.
But those sites are currently bottlenecked not by physics, but by paperwork. The intelligence estimates indicate they are severely constrained by regulatory and political delays.
Right.
I mean, if a European observation satellite is blinded or disabled, you cannot wait 6 months for an environmental review to launch a replacement.
Exactly. The administrative pace of peacetime is completely incompatible with the operational requirements of an orbital conflict.
Now, given these high-stakes infrastructure hurdles and the, frankly, grim reality of military architectures, it is vital to examine how the global public is reacting to this new space race.
Yes, and we have access to extensive social media sentiment analysis, primarily from X.
And the sentiment analysis presents a fascinating dichotomy. When analyzing the public discourse, the overriding emotion is not fear of a new orbital battlefield, but overwhelming enthusiasm for technological progress.
It's true. When you scroll through X and see everyone cheering for Starship V3 or analyzing the Artemis lunar goals, it is viewed primarily as a grand human adventure.
Even the rumors of a SpaceX IPO dominate financial conversations. It's all very optimistic.
And the reactions to setbacks are also framed entirely through a civilian lens.
Like with Blue Origin.
Right, the Blue Origin explosion generated mixed to negative frustration online, sure, but it was largely viewed by the public as just a disappointing delay to NASA's lunar base plans, rather than a critical vulnerability in national security launch infrastructure.
We also see a strong current of global pride. Indian social media users show immense pride in the expansion of domestic rocket production facilities in Tamil Nadu.
And Chinese users celebrate the Shenzhou 23 mission as a triumph of national engineering.
And alongside all of this, there's a constant stream of neutral, purely aesthetic appreciation for lunar photography. But I have to ask, are people simply blinded by the spectacle?
How do you mean?
Well, are they so captivated by the imagery of fire and thrust that they completely miss the fact that these very rockets are laying the foundation for a military logistics capability?
I think the public consumes space activity as a narrative of exploration and corporate triumph. The intelligence community consumes it as a narrative of force projection, dual-use infrastructure, and gray zone coercion.
Two different realities.
But both realities exist concurrently. A successful Starship launch is an inspiring step toward Mars, yes, but it is also a demonstration of rapid heavy lift capability that could deploy a massive military mega constellation in a matter of days. The spectacle of the launch naturally masks the strategic intent of the payload.
Very well put. So, to ground this in the immediate future, we need to look at the calendar. What are the upcoming events that will test these trajectories in the coming weeks?
Well, for those tracking these developments, the first major event to monitor is the upcoming SpaceX Orbital Cryogenic Fuel Transfer demonstration scheduled for June at Starbase, Texas.
Ah, yes. Because to move heavy mass beyond low Earth orbit, the tyranny of the rocket equation demands on-orbit refueling. You simply cannot get large payloads to the Moon or Mars on the fuel you launch with.
Exactly. Proving zero boil-off cryogenic fluid management in microgravity, meaning transferring super-chilled liquid oxygen and methane between two ships without the fuel turning into gas and leaking away, that is the final physical hurdle before true deep space logistics becomes viable.
It's the critical enabling technology.
It is. Following that, in mid-July, Rocket Lab is scheduled to launch the LOX-AT mission. This will further test cryogenic fluid management in orbit, continuing the push towards sustainable in-space infrastructure.
And from a security monitoring perspective, where are the intelligence collection requirements focusing right now?
Assets will be heavily focused on the Jiuquan and Wenchang launch sites in China, monitoring for unannounced heavy lift operations or constellation deployments.
Right.
Simultaneously, there will be persistent monitoring of the Baltic Sea region, tracking Russian electronic warfare signatures from Kaliningrad to assess any escalation in their disruption campaign against NATO airspace.
So we have examined the tactical gray zone disruptions, the permanent strategic architecture being built in the East, the launch physics bottlenecking the West, and the public's enthusiastic perception of it all. But we want to leave you with a final objective question to ponder.
A question that stems directly from the blurring of civilian and military lines we discussed today.
Consider this. If a commercial satellite network, owned by a private corporation, becomes the primary nervous system for a nation's military communication and targeting during an active conflict, at what point does international law cease to view it as a protected civilian asset and officially recognize it as a legitimate military target?
That is the question that will define the next decade of orbital operations.
Absolutely. Now, for our listeners who require this level of objective, unvarnished analysis on a daily basis, we want to explain how you can leverage the tool that generated this deep dive.
Stylo News is a mobile and desktop application that allows individuals to download and customize personal intelligence-style briefs. It aggregates and synthesizes data from hundreds of traditional news sources, as well as real-time sentiment from X.
It basically gives you the power of an intelligence analyst right on your device. We encourage you to subscribe to Stylo News for AI-powered news on demand. You can find it at www.stylonews.com. And be sure to join the platform this Friday for the Stylo News Intel update, where the strategic debate topic will be the evolving situation in East Africa.
We appreciate your attention to this briefing.
And that concludes today's intelligence briefing. On a personal note, though, we know this is incredibly heavy material we covered today, but we really hope we made the underlying mechanics and strategies clear and, interesting for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have topics you're curious about and want us to break down in future deep dives, definitely send in your requests. We love digging into the details that matter to you. Don't forget to follow Stylo News on your favorite social media platforms to stay connected. Until next time, stay curious.